Welcome back to another episode of Spiritual Teachers Podcast. With me today is a dear brother and friend. Uh, he goes by Samson. Samson is a Kundalini yoga instructor, a shamanic practitioner, and a distance healer. It's such an honor to have you on, Samson. Welcome on.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and happy solstice to everyone watching and listening. Even in
Yeah,
the
this
future, you can still tune in.
yeah, this video is going to be released several weeks after the summer solstice, but we're recording it on the solstice. So it's a beautiful day to do this. So I'm really stoked to have you on, bro. And some of the topics we may cover today are 1,000 day Kundalini Yoga Kriyas, Samson healing his broken back with Kundalini Yoga, the Christ Kriya, stories of the saints, and the Ho'oponopono, and way more that's just covering the surface of what we're going to dive into today. So, Samson, we would love to hear how it all started for you, your story, and how it all evolved with your awakening journey.
So I had a lot of recollection as a child. So I don't know if it's a continuance of awakening or an awakening. I would probably say it's just kind of being born already anchored in it. So it's really
Hmm.
interesting for me to empathize with being asleep and then discovering spirit later, because it's like I never actually had to believe because I had constant conscious contact my entire life. And my journey was more about relating to people. And, you know, part of it is serving God by communicating kind of unconditional love and God's will and helping to heal some of the misperceptions in the world. But part of it was just wanting to relate to people. Like, walk behind me and I may not lead, walk in front of me and I may not follow, but walk beside me and be my friend. So I kind of just
Hmm.
wanted to like celebrate the divine together with people and connect in, I would call it a telepathic space where it's not telepathic as much with thoughts, but just that high bandwidth feeling transmission. But I found a lot of people either didn't understand it or were kind of resistant to it,
Hmm.
and that healing work was paramount to both my service of God and my personal fulfillment in connecting to people.
For sure, man. I mean, it's a rare thing to have been awake your whole life, and I'm sure there was some challenges with that, right? Like connecting and relating to people and trying to connect in those deeper ways, probably, right?
Yeah, so the wandering souls that I'm part of were just like really old souls, and we incarnate to do a specific type of work in different systems. We tend to incarnate into lineages that have certain challenges, and you know, whether you call them like curses or karma or whatever, it's patterns of consciousness and emotion that aren't serving awakening. And in the Divine Science by Sri Yukteswar, I think I have the book right here, The Holy Science, excuse me. He talks about the
Mm.
yugas, or the different eras of consciousness over the thousands of years. And it's kind of like summer, winter, spring, fall, but it's consciousness. So in the golden age, that would be like summer, where people are aware of divine vibration and there's high technology and inner peace. And in the dark ages, people forget and they're all kind of feuding and primitive, Neanderthalish and angry. But
Yeah, yeah.
I believe that even, you know, other beings like Pleiadians, Lyrans, etc., like that there's cycles in the evolution of beings with higher technology too. That until society awakens on a spiritual level, no matter how much sophistication of AI, for example, that's relevant in this world right now, or other quantum technologies, it's about the connection to the divine and like the moral and the still small voice inside the heart being an accessible thing and like a mainstream concept of where our leadership comes from. So we can make all sorts of mistakes, even with high technology and beautiful gifts. Like I referenced the story of Prometheus and the fire of the gods. It's a metaphor, literal on a few different planes as well. But if you give a whole bunch of, say you let a baby drive a car or a go-kart with a governor, the go-kart still, if it's not a bumper car, that's kind of a jarring ride. And The pituitary gland, which is the glandular correspondence to the crown chakra, limits our pineal gland when it's producing DMT, which
Hmm.
is, one of the components in awakening and high consciousness. And just a little bit of it is released all the time so that we have an experience of consciousness. There's 5 different states in which it's excreted extra intensely, but when we are facing too much awakening energy, so much that we would kind of flip out and not be well adjusted in our lives, the pituitary gland isn't just the nectar gland, it's actually the poison gland as well. It's like a governor on the go-kart of our consciousness,
Hmm.
and it
Hmm.
limits our accessibility to higher consciousness and extra life memories and such things so that we feel safe and we can learn the lessons that are relevant to our current level of maturity and our current focus and our present reality. And the
Yeah.
electromagnetic field of our heart is, outside of, say, holotropic breath work, which stimulates the heart, or psychedelics, which can stimulate the heart as well. It's or Kundalini yoga and the different breath work and mantra in that. It's a state of natural compassion and empathy, where this toroid field from the heart actually shifts the polarity inside the pituitary gland and allows one to stabilize higher consciousness. And so that's what a lot of us that have some or all of the yogic cities awake or higher remembering of divine connection are experiencing, like electrochemically and emotionally, to allow for that.
For
And our
sure.
injuries, our traumas that we haven't completed processing of, our resistance to, divinity and consciousness, those are the places where spirit slows it down and simplifies things so that we can
Hmm.
face and digest, say, parodies of what our real issue is until we feel safe enough to digest the challenges and blockages in our energy and return to that authentic, genuine heart connection. And that's why we're going to talk about Kundalini Yoga first, because it's one of the many tools and traditions that allows us to address those blockages and open up to the higher consciousness.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, and before we dive into that, you mentioned the yugas. So there's the Kali Yuga, and what are the other ones?
What are the names of each of the yugas? That's a great question. I think I can refer to the contents in the holy science here.
Okay, okay.
Do you have them off the top of your head?
I don't know. So I know there's the Kali Yuga. I think there's a Durga Yuga. I'm not sure about that one, but the yugas I know are associated with different Hindu deities, I would presume, right?
Yeah, I love the whole like one god, many god topic because imagine a tree and then it's got many branches. So maybe the branches would be aspects, kind of like how angels, instead of looking like a whole bunch of freaky Alex Gray eyes, no offense to all the angels, they take form so that they're approachable to us. And it might be androgynous and bright light and beautiful, or it might be like male or female, like a companion, just whatever we're ready to see and whatever is relevant to the messages that are shared. And so I feel that way with the many deities. It's not that they don't exist, but they're also not separate from that singular force. And they may appear to be our older brothers and sisters, if not unrelated completely on a different plane of consciousness, but they're actually just fractal reflections of God talking to God. And so that's a lot of what the whole picture is about. In Lakesh is an ancient phrase that means you are another me, I am another you.
Mm,
Padme is another word that means I see God in you. And there's these codes. And without speaking, there's these energetic and emotional codes that remind and sort of magnetically awaken. And it's sometimes it can feel stimulating like too much, and sometimes it can feel like the most soothing reminder. But they exist for our use, and I think putting them out there is a part of my work here on this earth, just to help people feel that their life and their creative faculty actually dictates reality and is a choice, that we're not just sovereign in our own bodies and minds, that we're sovereign creators of our reality. And that's why pratyahara in yoga is such a useful thing, the withdrawal of the senses, because we can find peace and simplicity and begin to remember that we are at cause. Really, God is at cause. Um, so the yugas in simplicity, I'm not sure the Hindu deities or the Sanskrit names for the yugas, which I would love to go over again because it helps me be a better teacher. But their meaning, I'll say the same thing about not just the bandhas, but like the gunas, the locks of desire, love, and identity. Three.
Like the
Um,
locks in the body, right? In different cultures, there's different locks. There's the mulbanda, right, which is
mhm.
like tightening your sex organs and your rectum. And then there's the lock like right by your diaphragm, and then
That
there's a
one's
neck
Uddiyana
lock.
bandha, yeah. So the mul bandha, the root lock, it's to stop not just sexual energy, but life force in general from leaking out of the root chakra. Like it's good to connect to the earth, but not necessarily to be drained in it when you have healthy life force that maintains in your body. So like the eight brocades in Tibetan system, Kundalini yoga, so many different systems of yoga and qigong and alchemy, like Taoist alchemy, they're using that to block the flow of downward energy when you're having an exhaling breath or a
Mm-hmm.
downward focus, and then let
Mm-hmm.
it build a certain pressure for different removals of blockages and cultivations of the nervous system, the connective tissues, etc. Um, the Uddiyana Bandha is kind of as the belly draws inward and upward, kind of like you see the Indian yogis that are most famous for it, having like the many different shapes of contraction in the belly with such perfect control. I did a was it 12, 18 day mostly water fast with the master cleanse. So there's a little bit of cayenne pepper, maple syrup in there, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Lemon. But my stomach was doing that. I was going to 3 to 5 hot yoga classes a day and then doing my own practice. This was in
Wow.
Sedona many years ago. And I felt how it just like pumps the energy up the spine because it goes in and up and it's pushing the fluid, kind of like your digestive tract and system upward. And that could also kind of like pump it down and out the root. And then the third one is you just like, there's a string at the top of your head and slightly tuck back your chin. And
Mm-hmm.
that motion kind of constricts the glottis, just like when you're doing ujjayi breathing that keeps your
Mm-hmm.
consciousness with that ocean sound of the constricted breath moving through the throat. So it's like a dristi in terms of sensation and hearing instead of visual focus. And the beautiful thing about all three of them together, which is called Mahaband, is that one, it's blocking the energy from leaking through the bottom. Two, it's driving the energy upward. And three, it's aligning the neck so that the receiving of higher frequencies and the alignment with the higher chakras beyond the crown that are mostly collective, like chakras that we share on a higher frequency. So location becomes less paramount and frequency becomes the new sort of modulator for where it's located above us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it allows us to plug into the divine force and cultivate grounded presence and life force here in our body and mind. So it's not like the dissociative spirituality that says let's not deal with our problems, but it's also not like the super dogmatic spirituality that says we're defined by our problems. And it
Mm.
allows us to alchemize and be at peace at the same time.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I mean, and it seems like those locks and those ways of moving the energy and stopping it from leaking out are a foundation for many different practices in the world.
Yes, I think so. And the breath more paramount than almost anything.
Hmm.
Great yogis. I think yogis have been mistaken for like different kinds of mystical creatures before because of their strange abilities. But slowing the breath and being in the hospital once or twice, and then like slowing my heart to the point where the nurse had to come in and like turn down the resting heart rate because I was using trance to lower my heart rate
Wow.
because I was bored in the hospital and I was practicing my yoga.
You probably
Eventually, the
freaked them
nurse
out over there, man.
a little bit. Eventually, the nurse just kind of looked at me and she was like, "Can you stop that?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." But she had it set super low. I asked her a few questions about like how low she set it. Another time, I was in the gym in college and I was, working the elliptical because it's easier on my ankles than running and jogging. I like biking too. I do
For
a lot
sure.
of energy ball and distance healing and stuff when I'm biking. So anyway, I'm doing the elliptical and I had the little heart thing plugged in to monitor my heart rate. And I'm like, what if I just maintain my speed instead of trying to go really fast for cardio and then lower my heart rate at the same speed? So this is lowering my heart rate during exercise.
Uh-huh.
And I was really enjoying it and I felt myself getting more powerful, but I wasn't trying to like hurt the machine or anything. I was using the same amount of effort and yet the potency in my muscles and my energy field was growing. And then
Mm.
suddenly the leg broke off the elliptical and shot across the gym and bounced all over the place and scared me and everybody else in the gym.
No way.
Yep.
So now,
So this is,
now looking back at it, what happened there? Was like your aura expanded like around the elliptical, and the energy was just like overpowering the electronics, or what do you think was going on?
I've been able to get Wi-Fi signal like out in the middle of nowhere in a good mood, and then I've like, kind of accidentally blown up some tower speakers at a festival a couple times in a row when I was like overexcited, not just frustrated, but even just overexcited. So that energy follows the frequency of our consciousness. It can either be harmonizing or distorting depending on the emotional frequency that we're emanating, which comes back to us being a cause. So in this case, it wasn't my energy directly that was affecting the elliptical because it was very dense and physical, and my energy's you know, kind of ghosting through a lot of physicality. Only a little bit of it is making contact. Only a small percentage of our oversoul is actually present in our body and mind. We're very extended and multidimensional beings more than we usually witness and realize. And that said, I think it was just the potency of chi, prana, ojas, whatever you want to call it. The life force in my body was being amplified because when you slow down your heart rate, you open up higher brain waves. So my strength was being enhanced by extra dimensional forces and just having access to a slightly larger percentage of myself or the beingness that any human has access to. But we don't usually tap into it because we're not usually trying to calm down to the point of deep trance and relaxation while we're working out. We might just calm down to not overexert ourselves in a sustainable way, but that's not a common practice. And these days, we're approaching the golden age, which is like summer and divine radiation and beautiful connection to God, where the highest practice is silent meditation. But we're still in, I feel, that age before that. You could call it akin to the spring. The winter would be the dark age. The fall would be the fall of consciousness. So we're in the rise of consciousness, but not quite stabilized, and a lot is being purified. And because of that, mantra or any sort of repetitive focus on the divine, on God, on love, on compassion, divine mother, divine father, whatever deity or aspect of the beloved energy that is resonant with you is the most powerful way to stay connected to the spirit, because in silence a lot of the distortions, a lot of the purifying process that's speaking so loudly in our current collective reality would distract us and pull us out of that center point focus, that pratyahara, the withdrawal. And I really love the concept that the sustainability of our spiritual focus is led by beauty to cross the great void, because it's the power of the subconscious or the superconscious that holds it and leads it. Like God is the doer.
Hmm.
And when we try to do something based on willpower, the only reason we have to use willpower in the first place is because part of our being is resisting. And I do like pressing back, like Yogi Bhajan said, if you're depressed, press back. And he was a Saturn teacher, and there's a lot of stuff, kind of like sad stuff, like about same as Bikram or John of God or whatever, about um, just all the abuse of that spiritual attention. And that's why I
Yeah.
think it's beautiful that we're meant to be concentric leaders instead of figurehead leaders, because we're not as susceptible to that corruption. So even if one of us has a bunch of wisdom, instead of letting someone elevate us like a figurehead, we admit the weaknesses in our ego and the part of our awakening that's still in process, and credit God and the energy of the guru to good, clear mediumship and loving prayer. And we can kind of pass the voice around or share it together. And the attempted checks and balances of democracy are actually a metaphor for the checks and balances of each other's ego to stay in touch with the divine during these difficult ages. And that feels like a very
I
beautiful
love
way.
that. I love that because I feel like that's so important. And I forgot, I heard the other day. Oh, I was listening to a Ram Dass podcast of Ram Dass speaking in the 70s, and he quoted the Buddha, and the Buddha said that community is like number one for spiritual growth and development. And I would like to take it even a step further than that, and like accountable community, you know? It's like community that, oh, okay, what the Buddha taught is one of the books that Samson's holding up, and then the Yoga of Jesus. I love it. I love it. Is the Yoga of Jesus written by Paramahansa Yogananda?
It is.
It is. Okay.
And
I haven't seen that book by him. I gotta check that one out.
Autobiography of a Yogi, the classic one, was the only book on Steve Jobs' iPad when he died.
Oh
So
yeah.
a lot of the technology that influences the development of the modern world actually has some of the teachings and philosophy and energy of great spiritual teachers inside it. And a lot of times people think these worlds are separate, but technology is a part of nature, and our difficult emotions are a part of our divine nature, and everything is really providence and blessed and connected, including the difficult things. And I think the reasons most people feel any type of disconnect from their own emotions or the divine force or greater awareness is the struggles against that, like feeling like something couldn't possibly be righteous or good or divine if it's hurting their feelings or blowing their mind in a way that it's like I can't see righteousness inside that. And the courageous move is presence.
Hmm.
I am Satnam, just to look closer and open your heart to what is, move beyond the judgment, be unpretentious, and be present. And then all doors open with persistence. But when you're trying to use willpower to do that, you just kind of get deflected off the pain and hubris of your own perspective, your own subconscious traumas, stories, and calcified energy. I use that for the pineal gland, fun
Mm.
metaphor.
Hmm.
But that calcified energy, and it can soften because the catalyst is love. The catalyst is all the parodies of each other that we are, that God perfectly aligns, the repeating, fractal, holographic reflection that we are, is kind of like a code for remembering, removing those veils. Okay, somebody else's problem is bigger than mine or not as bad as mine. Somebody else's gift is bigger than mine or not as bad as mine. And we're willing to view it without even realizing it's a distorted reflection of our own process. And we get the codes that we need through the filter that we need to feel safe. And over time, our soul gathers momentum and feels healthier to be more truthful and more connected. It's a very pure, providential, guided process. Um, and I like to share these things that I call divine context so people feel safer as they walk their path and they can honor themselves where they are and not rush to awakening and not defy it or deny it as if it's something scary either.
For sure, for sure. I totally agree with that, and I think another big piece is surrender because you were as you were mentioning that it made me think of a men's circle that I was part of last night where we did a cold plunge, and some of the guys they just sit down and they can just start breathing and be fully present. But other guys are just like fighting and just screaming and tightening all their muscles, and they're like, "No, I'm not gonna surrender." And then as soon as there's that shift, then they can just ease into it and fully have that presence and allow for so many benefits to flow into their life. It's kind of like a metaphor.
It is. It's in the beginning, you have to use effort to surrender because there's these habits of contraction. I'm going to turn off my video for a sec as I attempt to plug in this older phone model, but I'll continue speaking. Um, so at first, there's these habitual contractions, just, the cold. This is bringing me to Wim Hof, another really beautiful one. But he
Yeah.
says the cold is my teacher. And he went through a lot of really difficult things with his wife and his kids and health. And then he also ended up teaching his twin brother to do the same techniques. So
Mm.
they were realizing it wasn't just some freak of nature ability that he had, that it was a transferable thing, and using science and biofeedback and many medical devices to validate that. The Tibetans call it tumo, like that. You can melt snow and melt ice and dry freezing water on towels on your back without a shirt on, and we can generate this inner heat. And that's one of the divine abilities called siddhis, Siddih. If you want to look it up, beautiful viewers out there.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's kind of what we're aiming at, like the baby steps that are accessible to us, like the cold plunge at your men's retreat. Because when the ancient yogic method was hydrotherapy, where you do hot and cold 3 times, like as hot as you can stand it, as cold as you can stand it, and then you calm your heart and you adjust to the intense stimulation. And it just has a codex to so many other situations in life, but it's something really simple and present, like temperature.
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
some of the more complex things that we tell stories about, it's like, oh, I can recognize this as an energy current instead of a concept that I defy with my ego. I can use my heart and my soul to navigate it instead of my mind. And then I can use my mind and my voice when my heart is calm. My ego is not cut off, but it's bowed below my heart and being respectful and supportive instead of, exacerbating the problem.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think something like a hot and cold is done around the world, like I know so many practices where it's like you go in the steam room or the sauna and then you go in the cold river or jump into the snow if it's available and there's so many benefits, so much dopamine gets released, so many hormones that are just so good for us, and it can cure and heal people's depression, take them fully back into their body again because so many people aren't are somewhere out here, they're not really fully in their body, and those kind of practices just help us fully ground into and be present in the body.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the many catalysts across cultures that allow us to have access to this. And I think part of our work being spiritual leaders in this current age is to meet many of the current vernaculars, like the common popular things and the common snafus and dogmas and challenges, and say, this is an accessible spiritual practice. And
Hmm.
something that I call spiritual dim sum, where you like sample a few different traditions. Now,
Mm.
normally it's said you pick one enlightened master and you just kind of study their tradition because they have like a more broad view. And
Hmm.
whether or not you meet a guru in person or you're just connecting to a particular teacher, it's a more stable way to progress towards divinity. But my path has been kind of like how Anandamayi Ma, the awakened female saint, could speak of traditions all over the world that she'd never studied, just kind of beyond mediumship. She was kind of always in the open guru energy. She said it was said that she is where saints are created from, not even a saint, like a god avatar. But she would
Mm.
talk of all different traditions, and she wouldn't just say, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, etc., Buddhist. She just all of them were equal and beautiful. And I
Yeah.
feel like as we feel the parallels between truths in different religions, it's not just about bringing people together all over the world. It's about bringing the different parts of ourselves together. Because maybe one says, be reverent, but there's kind of a stick up the butt. It's a little bit too dogmatic. And maybe one says, be fruitful and multiply, but then it's like a little bit too hedonistic and without structure. And we
Hmm.
find where the amount of structure that feels right to our heart exists and the amount of freedom and joy and celebration that feels right to our heart exists. And I think that metabolizing, like, am I a light worker? Am I a shadow worker? I am is a complete sentence back to
Hmm.
unpretentious presence
For
and
sure.
Sat Nam. But I'm kind of the alchemical cauldron where God is working as the doer, and to allow a healthy balance between connecting to the light without disassociating and facing the shadow without getting absorbed in the river Styx. Like, I don't want to be Icarus, but I also don't want to be an overly ambitious shaman that gets sucked into the darkness by trying to solve the problems and isn't available to serve on earth and be sane and feel safe. So
For
what is
sure.
it to be like a tree, like with branches and roots that are in balance enough to still be present with the trunk?
Yeah, I mean, when as you said that, it made me think about how, I know many people, I know several elders that have been committed to a certain path for their life, like 20, 30, 40 years committed to one way. And uh, some of them, not all of them, but some of them still have a really hard time with humanness, like with their shadows, with like judgment, with all these types of things. And me personally, as I evolve and I find different walks of this life, and different spiritual paths, I can't help but take a little bit here and take what resonates here and just like find the tools that are most effective for me in period of my life, and then really connect to that, take that down as far as it needs to go, and then maybe try this other thing that from there continues me forward in a more powerful way, and I've met so many people that are like that, where they're like, just stick with one path and it'll get you there. But from noticing different elders that have done that, it seems as though that may not be the way forward nowadays. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's contextual because I think there's some people whose roots run deep and it would be difficult for them to broaden their spiritual practice, like even detrimental. And
Mhm.
they're holding the anchors of these frequencies, kind of like an instrument in a symphony. And so it's important that some just practice their way and they'll know because they're called to it in their heart. And then
Mhm.
there's others where they're afraid of it, maybe intimidated by it, excited by it, but they want to. It's not a caution to say this isn't aligned. It's a caution to say, are we sure that this is safe? Are we sure that this is pure? Are we sure that this is healthy?
Mhm.
And when you're quiet and the anxiety fades away, we return to that unpretentious presence. That's when you can kind of filter, okay, which voice is my ego, my ambition, my fear, my boredom, and which voice is the still small voice that has access to all knowledge and is loving and calm, kind of like the voice of God within me, my true self.
Mhm.
And in that, it can be very beneficial because the whirling rainbow prophecy or the prophecy of the eagle and the condor I'll reference are all about kind of like that scene in the movie Iron Man when he was kidnapped by the terrorists and making the fake missiles that they wanted him to make so they didn't kill him, but he actually made the Iron Man suit to escape. And it's a
Mhm.
metaphor for making the light body. But the light body has the intersection of many different spiritual traditions. So ultimately, we are waking up. Like we go from meat to vegetables to sun gazing, but not everyone has to do it. And we go from, aggression and frustration to quiet discipline, but a little bit frustrated, even while we're being virtuous, to smiling masters. But not everyone has to do it. And
Mhm.
everyone has that free will to grow at their own pace. And time and space are a lot more interblended and flexible. And a higher dimensional perspective allows for the delays and the ways that people act differently. And we don't all just, drink the Kool-Aid together and awaken. We have to honor the resistance that's within us to,
Yeah.
one, have unconditional love and connect to creator, and two, to be able to begin to transcend that resistance because it's not broken. It's a part of spirit's pace. And spirit is the most cultured and masterful teacher. So it doesn't just rush into the pleasure of good things. It gives you all the delays and all the mystery and all the ambiguity. And it doesn't always feel like, flirting and your ultimate beloved and your true self guiding you through this beautiful creation. It feels rocky when you resist it. And perfect love is a perfect mirror. It will
Mhm.
show you yourself and allow you to rise into your potential by choice instead of, shoving your higher nature down your throat because
Oh yeah,
part of
that's
the
for sure,
adventure
bro.
is the sovereignty of the process of awakening.
Yeah, I know for me, a relationship has been such a mirror. It
Mm.
shows me all of all the parts of myself that haven't been fully embodied and integrated yet, and these deeper core wounds come up, and it's it's a really, like you said, a really powerful mirror. And I think I've grown the most from relationship. And
Well,
it's
this is
not it's not
inevitable.
just romantic relationship too. It's like what we were talking about earlier with collective relationship, community relationship, close friend groups. It doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic partner just to get those reflections.
Yes, and there is that with the romantic, it can be very heightened, kind of like the guru disciple relationship. It's
Hmm.
they're all aspects of the relationship with God, which is inclusive of all of them, but transcending all of them as well. And I find the romantic one to be a powerful one too. I feel very connected to the beloved as an archetype of God, reality, in the inner self. And that doesn't necessarily just mean like the the idealized romantic partner that's a vibrational match to my healthiest self. Like before I transcend into God and don't need to have a self, I'm like my best self. And then what's like the gender polarity match to that? That's like a really beautiful portal and meditation topic. And yet it's all of the relationship, or else God would just have us in a reality that's completely about the romantic beloved. But it is my favorite. Like, what do you like? You like the baby Jesus? Do you like the fat Buddha that's like playful with the big belly? Do you like, the really strong spiritual warrior archetype? Do you like the Christ that is everywhere, like the Holy Spirit, or the Christ that's actually a spiritual figure you can talk to, like a mentor or a friend? Do
Hmm.
you like the Divine Mother or the Maiden? There's so many, anything that you can conceive of that gives you a sense of the higher potential and your best self. That's a form of God that's worthy of communicating with. And it's not blasphemy to connect to God in a way that feels right to you. Those are some of the most broken codes that keep us apart. And I feel like some of the delays and distortions are just so easily recognized as God's plan and all part of the beauty and flirtation within the awakening process, the divine romance, like, God breaking the fifth wall. Because the
Hmm.
fourth wall is like, you're in Shakespeare, and it's like, oh, audience, I'm not supposed to know that you're there, but here's this thing about the plot. And now back to our illusion.
Uh-huh.
And the fifth wall is God doing that to us in this dimension. And I really love that.
Yeah.
I was talking about it for many years, and then on the show Rick and Morty, they said something about breaking the fifth wall, and I was like, yes, it's in the field. Like it only took a few years for semi-mainstream culture to get it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's happening. It's happening. I
a
mean,
romantic relationship. Go ahead.
yeah, it's really cool to watch, how society shifts the more of us awaken. It's like it seems as though these inauthentic ways of relating, even different shows, people are craving that authenticity. They're craving that realness, right? And
Well,
more
we
and
can't
more.
binge.
What's that?
We can't binge numbing stuff anymore. Like the Great Solar Flash is a whole nother topic, but it's basically just a part of the transition to the golden age. And the more the energy flows in for us to be awake and aware, the more difficult it is for us to lie to ourselves and each other. And like the compartments bleed together. Like it's hard to keep stuff pushed down in the subconscious. Or like, man, my disassociative pleasures seem like way more sickening and less pleasurable and more frustrating to me. But that said, when you connect to the divine force, it feels more approachable and like not as intimidating too, because the ambient vibration around us and our collective co-creation is kind of guiding us to be more awake and present with the higher energies. It's like you're a sailboat, but there's still a wind in the collective co-creation. So it's
Yeah.
easier to, tack more closely to the direction of the wind to sail faster. It's a little harder to tack against it. So the main current is awakening, and a lot of the darkness and distortions and blockages in the collective are currently being dispelled, which is why it appears so chaotic in the world right now. But it's actually just kind of like a giant ayahuasca purge for the collective consciousness.
I agree with that. I agree with that. And I think a lot of us knew that the president we have right now is going to shake things up, and it was clear to me that needed to happen, and it's it's an important part of the evolution.
Set a new precedent, that's for sure.
There you
So
go. Yep. The
even the
president's
word
setting a precedent.
even the word Trump means one up. And like a lot of times, what is it that we're not supposed to talk about? God, sex, and politics. So let's talk about all of them because those are actually invisible. And that's where God is hiding inside the things we avoid. And where God is already present is the things that appear beautiful to us because it doesn't take effort. But where the water's too hot, where the water's too cold, you know, we don't have to be Icarus or get lost in the river Styx either. But there is a rate of growth that honors the soul, and too slow or too fast has its relevant distortions. Think of it as the geometry of nature or the permaculture of souls. So, so much food for thought. So, people don't need to take in all of this because the beings that, um, the beingness that I'm trying to acclimate to this reality speaks so much faster and such a higher bandwidth of both feeling and intelligence than I can. And I'm trying to slow it down and codify it, but there's just a lot. So slow down and codify what I'm saying too, and just like work with the parts that resonate because
For
there's going to
sure,
be
for sure.
a lot of information at once, and I'm learning to pause and make it more accessible.
Yeah, for sure. I think, uh, that's how I navigate life is like I take what resonates and I leave the rest. And this seems like one of those podcasts that may be able to people might listen to several times throughout, several months and they may get different pieces each time. So, yeah, I appreciate you and everything that you're bringing to the world and to this in this moment. So, thank you, brother.
Yeah, I
And
want to thank you for the stability and commitment to create this structure and share people such as myself with the world, because it's like the ringing cedar trees, like you have to be harvested and share your gift or else it just burns inside you.
for sure.
I'll let you finish and then I'll go back to the thing you said about relationships before.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's that's what it's about, right? Like as the collective awakens, the people that have the messages and the codes, like you were saying, need to be in the spotlight to share and to really express.
I feel like I'm making a transition to that, so I guess I can ask for help from you, which I didn't even have to, and you just showed up because we appreciate each other. So thank you for that bond, and to all the listeners. Um, there's many titles and many gifts and skills that I have, and many more than I have that I can activate in others. And I want to share what I have access to because it's meant for a lot more than me. And
Hmm.
I'm not a figurehead. I'm not too concerned with ownership or personal attention, but I want there to be attention toward God and the spirit and inner peace and all these wonderful resources and the higher potential for humanity. So if anyone does want to reach out to me, I'm sure there'll be a way to provide my email or number. And towards the end, we'll talk about distance healing, but there's a few foundational things I want to include. So
Yeah,
putting that out there,
yeah,
thanking
we can
you for making
definitely
it
we'll
fun.
definitely share, your email and your Instagram if you want down in the description, and people can reach out, whoever wants to connect, and do you feel like this is a good time to talk about Kundalini Yoga and the Thousand Day Kriya?
Sure, let me segue for just a moment to your thing about romantic relationships because
Okay.
it's such a fierce mirror for many of us out there and for the both of us. And the beloved, when it does pertain to not only romance, but like the sexual alchemy that takes kind of sin and lust away from sex and allows the energy of that primal drive to sacrifice that which is of beastliness, as the Essenes say, and drive the energy upward to become Amrit in the heart, or the nectar of peace, or the peace that it surpasseth all understanding. It's hard
Mm,
to say that without a word.
yeah, it is.
Surpass
Yeah.
the peace that surpasseth all understanding. But I feel like the reason we stutter is so we emphasize this point.
Hmm.
Um, when we release our need for understanding, the feeling is more full body. And that's really what we're seeking from the beloved. It's like the deeper connection to God. We're
For
not
sure.
looking to get triggered and have karmic relationships XYZ. Like it happens so that we can address things to make room if we need to. But there is that focus on divine love that can very efficiently alchemize these things or even help us to transcend without disassociating from these lower planes of relating into deep, abiding, unconditional love that doesn't expect a thing.
Hmm.
After all these years, the sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." Imagine what is possible with a love like that. It can light up the sky. It's a roomy
That
evolution.
hits deep, man. That hits right in the heart. I felt that.
So, Yogananda says in the second book, um, Second Coming of the Christ Within You, it's like As Long as War and Peace. It's the one after Autobiography of a Yogi. He has a chapter about intimate relationships, and he says, the highest form of connection with God is in celibacy, but not everyone is ready for that. And I'm paraphrasing grossly. So,
Hmm.
um, when the desire to connect romantically and sexually is inside of you, you know, follow it because the emotional themes that are behind that help you to be ready to not fake that celibate connection with God where you're suppressing it and there's all these problems in the alchemy. And, even if you don't go out there and like violate other people's boundaries energetically, sexually, you're still going to suppress your energy and maybe hurt your health, even if you
Hmm.
have virtue. So, in the sublime transformation that occurs with healthy romance and like addressing codependence and addressing the fierce independence that's a wall to God and your own self, not just romantic partners, you allow yourself to blossom into the connection with God that is more direct. And it's not like first this and then that. The connection to God doesn't need celibacy. It's just heightened by it if it's aligned. And the connection to God doesn't need a romantic partner or a beloved. It's just heightened by it if it's aligned. And if
For
it's not
sure.
aligned, it's actually distracted by it. So that's where we're trying to filter out the ego. And that's where we can transition to Kundalini Yoga, because these sacred forces come into play along the lines of that theme.
Yeah, and before we transition into that, I really had this like visceral experience of opening my heart over the last couple of weeks, like having these deep triggers of my deepest core wound by my partner, and leaning into it, recognizing that it's not anything she's doing, it's just that is being reflected to me by her. And from that, the heart just expanded and opened, and then that activated these visions and these deep visions and dream state. And then I went into Vision Quest, where I sat in the woods without food and water for several days and prayed and cried to have uh, a date with Creator. And during that, I had these open eye visions, kind of like on psychedelics. And I've never had that before. So for me, there's a direct translation and transition from opening the heart and being truly like open to all that is love. And from there, that opens up all these other gifts, which there's definitely a connection there. Have you found that for yourself as well?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why the electromagnetic field of the heart and the pineal and pituitary gland. The pituitary gland doesn't just break down DMT to limit the pineal gland. When the heart reaches that frequency, like you're talking about, and it wasn't just like divine love and compassion, it was courage. Like you were facing your pain when you
Mhm.
activated that, which also plays into the Kriya and the discussion of Kundalini yoga in general. That's when the pituitary gland flips its polarity, kind of like the Earth's magnetic field for those next level people out there. Um, and it creates more DMT. So it's known as the poison gland and the nectar gland. So it synergizes the crown with the third eye. And corona, remember the coronavirus? Like corona means crown,
Right.
and the crown is about connection to divinity and everything and surrendering of the individual self. But the thing that blocks it is fear. So when we face our fear, when we're present with our pain, that's kind of the key code to the great love of the Buddha or the Christ, something like this, the awakening energy, Anandamayuma, the great female saints, Sophia. They don't talk that much about like Isis, Ave Maria, like the Divine Mother, Mary Magdalene, but there's masculine, feminine, and androgynous and extraterrestrial, so many different examples of these sacred forces. And it's not just pick what resonates with you. Even within what resonates with you, focus on what resonates with you the most. I guess Bashar does that one too. And on to your good day, follow your highest excitement. And,
Yeah.
or Abraham Hicks, stay in the vortex. I love all these emanations, but you find your own. Like it's not celebrity worship, it's not even guru worship, and even God. When you come to worship God, you find not in a way of hubris, but in a way of humility, that the voice of God is within you just as much as all around you. But there's less of a distortion in the reflections in the outer world when you come to the origin point. And the heart has this quantum entanglement with the perfect purity at the center of the universe, like the quiet core of your feeling, before the toroid field goes up and before the toroid field goes down, and all the reflections of reality. So you're in the woods doing that. You're accessing the sober mystical state that we just talked about to demonstrate its truth and have a testimonial for our audience. And that's what has been happening to me since childhood. Like, you know, giant psychedelic pupils, completely sober, channeling the mediumship state. And then sometimes I'll calm it down on purpose or because of my own emotional challenges, because spirit is balancing my neurochemistry. I don't claim to be an enlightened master. I'm just a very gifted medium and a devoted being. And I
Mm.
remember some of the nature of my soul, like some Matthias Di Stefano type stuff, expanded awareness of the soul's journey beyond just this individual body and mind. But That said, I think admitting our limitations, even as teachers and guides and healers, that allows us to have community and peers and mentors and support instead of trying to become a figurehead. That's the old way of leadership. The second coming of the Christ within you, that Yogananda book that was talking about, sexuality and celibacy. Within you, it says, Buddha Maitreya, the future Buddha, is also a collective consciousness. You will do works greater than mine own. Jesus quote, if I'm not butchering it. And
Yeah.
I was raised Jewish, so the New Testament's a little new to me. But I feel the parallels between all the different, if not all, most of the different traditions talking about the way that we're meant to express God and connect to God together culturally and societally instead of just focus on one figurehead. And that doesn't mean that we can't have glorious examples among us. But Trevor Hall, my love is just a reminder, find your center. And so it's like all directing you back inside to find that the pain, the triggers, and also the beauty and the inspiration. When you can find both, they alchemize together in the most glorious love and include all of the exciting beauty and all of the horribly overwhelming sadness in total saintly equanimity and calm. You're not disassociated, you're not hyper focused, you're just in this deeply present core that I call it the lucid window to God that allows you to not just practice meditation, which is kind of like tilling the soil. Will plants grow? We don't know. It's by the grace of God, meditation is like a higher spiritual phenomena that comes to us. The practice of meditation is very different than the state of meditation. So some people spend their lives and barely get a glimpse, if at all. And some people spend just a moment in some of the most inspired states of heart and they get it all. So
Yeah.
it's really just how genuine can you be in your heart and what in your life is going to support you in that. Meditation and prayer, the walkie-talkie with God, takes many different forms for many different people. So my message is embrace yours and relate to each other in sovereignty and authenticity.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, man, I totally resonate with all that. And uh, I'm really curious. You're one of the few people that I know. I think I may know two other people that have done 1,000-day Kundalini Yoga Kriya. And for those that don't know, a Kriya is a yoga set, and Kundalini is a type of yoga that is called the yoga of awareness. So, with that being said, you had broken your back before you started the Kriya, or did you break your back while you were doing the Kriya?
I already had hundreds of days of momentum into the Kriya. So I'd already learned it. My one of my teachers, I was at 7 centers, and Shraddha, who owned it, has passed away, and I didn't even know that she had cancer, but I got to give her a hug in Natural Grocers in Sedona, just being grateful that she helped my life. So I go to the studio there and I'm like, what sort of yoga instructor training should I take? And she's like, Kundalini. And I'm like, such a fast answer. Um, and so I said, why? Because I'm in the class doing headstand and breath of fire and taking like multiple yoga classes in a day quite often and not really tired, a little bit loud and exuberant. She's like, some people drop out, like it can kind of burn people out. It's really intense and a little energetically risky, but so are you. So I think it'll be a perfect.
She saw you,
So
man. She saw your soul.
he called me out. Shraddha, she's shrewd. Um, so anyway, Hari Jop was the guy from Yogi Bhajan's system that was a direct student of Yogi Bhajan. And he had so many great stories in classes. He's the one that did Christ Kriya, where it's like, that's the hand position, and you have your arms bent like that for 25 minutes. And Yogi Bhajan said, don't be a hero. Like just one arm totally out to the side and one totally up. You hold it for 11 minutes and you get most of the benefits in the last 30. And in India, people used to have less materialism and less drugs and you know more focus, less stimulation. So they would do some of this stuff for hours. And Yogi Bhajan significantly watered it down for drugged up, distracted Americans to be able to progress spiritually. And
Yeah,
Gurumukhi, right?
yeah,
Gurumukhi is derived from Sanskrit, and it's like a really deep and ancient vibrational language. And that's what a lot of the mantras are. Vaheguru Ji ka kosa, Vaheguru Ji Fateh. Um, so the 1,000-day Kriya that I ended up picking, like I have Jewish blood that goes way back. I think there's some Polish people like 8 generations ago or something, but it's pretty pure like the 13th tribe of the Holy of Holies. That's where you get live long and prosper from Dr. Spock. And that's
Okay.
also the mudra. So like, here's your Saturn finger. Let's restrict. This is the ego.
Right.
The Saturn finger is to restrict the ego. So that's why it's so famous. Gyan mudra in meditation. Palms up, your mind is quiet. You're receiving from the universe. Palms down, you're grounding into your inner self. But you're limiting the ego so that you can listen. Yogi
Hmm.
Bhajan was a Saturn teacher. Like, keep up. Very disciplined. Hardcore.
Yeah.
Then you have the Jupiter finger, and they made it a swear. They did, because it's expansion. Look at all the conspiracies. Anyway, you connect your ego to expansion and multidimensional awareness, memories, expanded states of emotion. This is the heart mudra, where you have the next one combined with expansion. This one is the inner light. It's like the sun. So you connect that and you feel the purity and like the light that you see if you stare at the sun or a candle flame, but within you
Hmm.
starts to be felt and even seen. This one looks like a pitchfork, like Shiva, devilly stuff. It enhances intelligence, which you should only do so much because you need to be able to contain this toroid field and that toroid field. You don't want your ego to surpass or become out of accordance with your heart. But it
Yeah, I
is
don't
pretty
see
cool.
people doing this very often.
Yeah, it's dangerous, but in moderation, it can enhance your intelligence within reason without causing distortion. You just have to
Yeah.
be humble and pray about it, you know, or
Yeah.
just, build up your heart and focus on that if you're not sure. Because
Do you
it's
remember
not
which planet
necessary.
the pinky is?
I want to say Mercury,
Okay.
intelligence, the closest to the sun, but not the sun. Kind of
Hmm.
like Lucifer was supposed to be like the first angel and stuff, but it's not God, and you're not supposed to mistake the ego for God
Yeah.
archetypes. Um, so this one's really cool. This is the heart mudra. Looks like
Yeah.
two kissing Anubises, and then it turns into a
Two
lotus.
little
Very
doggies.
beautiful. Mwah.
Yeah.
Um, but if you split those apart, this is the inner light expanding. You put these two together, and that's like such a beautiful feeling. That's why it's the heart mudra when you're meditating with your middle finger and second to pinky, whatever that finger's called.
Ring
Um,
finger.
that's right. That rings a bell. So we're splitting it in this one. Live long and prosper. Why is that so important? Because this is expansion, and then this is your inner light. So what keeps your inner light from expanding? What are the impurities? And that's why this is called self-purification kriya. And like the ancient priests of the Holy of Holies and the 13th Jewish tribe did this, but I didn't really know that that was my ancestry until after I chose this out of thousands of options, maybe
Mhm.
hundreds, and like Yogi Bhajan's manuals and stuff of
Yeah.
kriyas to commit to. We all did Subha Kriya, the classic 40-day Kundalini yoga instructor. That's how you make a habit, alchemical month. But 1,000 days is supposed to be mastery. Like, it's harder to not do it than it is to do it and get a deeply refined connection to the practice. So
Yeah, so
10
you
15.
mentioned the Subak Kriya. I did that one for 1,000 days. I don't know if I told you.
Oh,
And
that abundance, that one's great.
yeah, it's
I
really
meant to say
good.
Nabi.
And
I said
it
Subha
was
to remind.
what's that?
That was a divine stutter because I meant to say Navi Kriya, like everyone does the abdominal one with like legs and willpower for the
Oh
40-day
yeah,
initiation. But I misspoke, but God made me misspeak to have you share this.
for sure, for sure, for sure. Yeah, the Navi Kriya is really intense. It's like all core, and there's a lot of moving the legs to strengthen the abs. I mean, it makes sense because your core is your foundation for everything, and having that be really strong is super beneficial. But yeah, for me, the Subag really just like stood out, and it was like, how committed are you to breaking these financial blocks with your family? And I was like, I guess I'm a 1,000 day commitment. That's how committed I am. So, but like I had a broken hand, I had 104 fever, and I did it all through that, and it was like you said, it was easier to do it than to not do it after the first couple hundred days.
Breakups, deaths in the family, broken spine, like so many challenges, but they come up to test your mettle and say, do you really want to go this deep, or do you want to, slow down and give these things that you're used to being attached to some attention and energy? And it's not sinful, it's not bad. Like, it's okay to go at our own pace, but sometimes we are ready to break through and transcend our limitations. And the energy of our actions speaks for itself through the power of our heart. When the soul is ready, God is the doer, and it rises up, and all of the mountains become molehills in relation to the fire of the spirit inside.
For
So
sure.
that's what I've discovered. Such cool
So
mediumship.
yeah, I'm really curious, like, how did you break your back and how did you heal your back with this Kriya?
So I get sunburned pretty easy. Like I used to bike around with my shirt off, like 80 to 100 miles, get sore, be cool. I did some Reiki on the meniscuses of my knees and made those pains go away completely. It's like a few minutes, it feels better. Biking, it hurts again. So eventually I just took a couple hours, just got rid of the pain. So I've been, gifted in a few of the little things for a long time. It's hard to call them little, but compared to this, it was little.
Hmm.
So I'm doing this thing where the pressure builds up and you sit there for 11 minutes and, you know, I like to sing Om Namo Gurudev Namo, the opening mantra that calls the inner teacher for Kundalini. And if you're not, celibate in a cave with a guru, balancing the Ha and Tha, the sun and moon channels, so that the Kundalini rises naturally in safety, maybe over multiple lifetimes to awaken, then you pick something like Kundalini, where you take a risk and you activate Sushumna directly, whether or not you're in balance. And you call the inner teacher and you call the golden chain. And I personally have coined the golden web to call in multiple masters from multiple traditions because I feel good about that for me and my students that consent to it. Um, and yeah, then you have the guidance, but the guru is within you, and the guru is called in the astral instead of the physical. So there are some risks, and you got to be willing to take them and then step back if it feels too extreme. It won't ruin you all at once. If it's too much for you, it'll give you little hints, and you can say, okay, that's enough for me, too much or just enough. Or you can stay with it and really enjoy the intensity of it and know that your soul feels ready. So in
Yeah.
my case, my soul felt ready, and I did take a break after a while from another story that I'll maybe tell on a different podcast. But this this one, I got sunburned. Like my sun shield went away because of emotional stuff in my life, and like very easily in 5 minutes. And I'm like sleepy for 3 days. It's been getting a lot better since then. But I'm like, I don't know, 300 to 500 days into the Kriya out of 1,000. It's a little more like a few years, I guess, a little less than a few years.
Yeah.
So car accident, like getting sleepy, smart car kind of hits the ditch, and like if I had a seatbelt on, that car flipped and crushed itself. So I would have, been deceased if I was inside of that crushed vehicle,
Hmm.
unless God had another even more extreme intervention. So I'm flying through the air, like hitting the windshield kind of woke me up pretty well, and everything just
That'll
kind of
do
slowed
it.
down. Some sort of angelic or godly presence, I don't know, I was kind of preoccupied, like completely cleared my head and calmed me down and woke me up and flung me forward at a different angle because I was coming down to get paralyzed, to really sever the spinal nerve. And I felt it. I felt the timeline. I felt the energy of it. It was There was some other energies involved. I'll just put it that way. But it's
Hmm.
all divine, even the freaky stuff and the conspiracies. It's all provident. So I got flung forward. By what force? Maybe it'll be revealed to me in time.
Uh-huh.
And I damaged a vertebrae, and like my back that had a perfect curve was sticking out like a stegosaurus kind of. You
Oh
couldn't see
wow.
the bone through the flesh, but my legs were shaking like crazy. Somebody drove by and saw me attempting to army crawl to my phone that was like 20 feet away. I think I flew 20 meters, 60 feet, and landed right on my
Oh,
spine. And
jeez.
so I called my friend who was a doctor, but not to treat me, just to drive me to her vineyard. And I sat in a dark room, and she brought me food once a day. And I did some of the most painful yoga of my life. And
Yeah.
it made the shaking go away on the third day and fixed my spine. And the paramedics actually came up to me in the ditch because that person driving by called them. And I refused them. I'm like, you don't have a legal right to touch me. I'm in shock. Please don't ask me again. And I managed to like say that with a bunch of focus. And I'm just like, really being impacted by the pain and the shaking. So I'm a pretty strong yogi, but again, I'm not an enlightened master. I'm an intermediate, if at the beginning stages of advanced student. So that said, I had my challenges. I wasn't just perfect peace navigating this mortal coil. Like I was hurting and identifying with some of that pain, really
Yeah.
rocked by it. So I had to face my fear to refuse those paramedics. And I didn't know if this would be successful. I just felt that if I went to the hospital, my injuries would like solidify and condense instead of be able to be reshaped. So I
Yeah.
did this yoga alone in that room. And then after a few months, I was able to kind of get a bunch of my back bends back. But in 3 days, I was able to heal it. And there's no crack, there's no misalignment. It's amazing. And all the stories
Wow.
of the great saints that I'm like, is it legend or is it truth from like a more advanced time? Or is it accessible to us or not? Is really my question. And I'm like, oh wow, it's definitely completely accessible to us. So now I hold the artifacts of different saints and some of their traditions and a little bit of their powers, just a tiny, compared to that, a tiny amount. But I
Yeah.
know how to share it and how to teach and how to invite and how to initiate and where I'm allowed to and where I'm not.
Right, right, for sure.
It's a very beautiful thing to say, all things are possible with God, but it's a really beautiful thing to feel that all things are possible with God and be able to share that awareness. So that's another reason I'm so passionate about it. And as I lived out those 1,000 days and slightly beyond, and then returned to the practice after some humbling experiences, um, it doesn't matter if you've broken your vows 1,000 times before, all are welcome here. This is not a caravan of despair. Like,
Mm,
there are no unforgivable sins because everything is from God and everything returns to the awareness of God. It never actually leaves God in truth. So it doesn't mean you won't feel bad about it inside the current perspective, but it does mean that that frequency is there, the primordial innocence that we all possess. And anything that isn't of the root of God is illusion. That is, the illusion itself is still of the root of God. Just if that actually existed, it wouldn't be, but it doesn't. So there's even the illusion of the existence of evil is a part of God's providence and perfect love, and it doesn't occupy every reality. And it's part of the framework of devotion and light and grace. So there's a battle on the most basic level of consciousness, and then there's a dance kind of on the first level of awakening. And it's kind of beauty and celebrating and not trying to get from point A to point B or express anything, just gratitude, celebration, peace. And then there's a state of being where even the dance becomes moot and it's just a resonance, kind of like a Sof and Ein Sof in the Kabbalah. You've got, I believe, Ein Sof is God beyond form, like beyond time and space, all time, space, dimensionality, and lots of other things that we can't conceive of very well, in stillness, in total peace and awareness. And then Ein Sof is more like our crown chakra. I mean, Sof, excuse me. Reminds me of Goddess Sophia, controversial. Um, that's God within form, the sum total awareness of the entire universe and all dimensionality within time that is learning and growing and can have, I don't know if it would be fear and excitement like you and me, but it has that experience of growing and learning. It doesn't have the exact same omnipresent view. And so it's beautiful to travel down the rabbit hole from the contemplation of the mind of God all the way to the self and have a sense of that beautiful scope to remember that context. And things are a lot brighter and more possible and beautiful and conscious and intentional than we tend to assume or think or feel in the background based on the filters of our traumas. So it is nice to be able to see through them and relate to these higher concepts as a doorway and an invitation, even while we're still, drinking the Kool-Aid of our egos and the lower reality and our struggles. And just because it's from God doesn't mean we're stuck only focusing on that. And I think a little detour into the divine doesn't make us disassociate from our human responsibilities. It just helps to inspire the way that we approach.
absolutely. Absolutely, man. I couldn't agree more. And I think one of the final topics we wanted to discuss was, let me check here. We wanted to talk about um, the stories of the saints. Did you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, that and distance healing.
Yeah, yep.
Oh, I want to do another shout out. Charlie Goldsmith is pretty cool. He does like a lot of meditate for a second, make people's pain go away, sort of thing. But
Okay.
it's like he doesn't necessarily have like speaking in tongues in the religious angle. I really like the Holy Spirit and the connection to God and giving all credit to God myself. But that's not the only way to do it. And sometimes you're connected to the Spirit and you don't have to say it out loud too. So I just want to give the invitation to open mindedness of the synergy that leads to the awareness of unity instead of the judgment upon sin. Like, yes, we do sacrifice and release that which is of beastliness, but in our own time, in our own way, from the fullness and authenticity of our heart, instead of trying to pretend to be virtuous so we don't feel bad about ourselves. Like, be honest that you feel bad about yourself, digest it, get support others. It's a natural process. So the stories of the saints are about some of the beings that do great good deeds with or without the super yogi powers. And the ones that I'm more interested in are the ones with the cities. Like there's somebody who went to a mental institution. Shout out in the comments if you know the story and want to provide the details. Looked at the case files, was not allowed to visit the mental patients. A Hawaiian prayer, ho'oponopono. Translation, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And you can say it in English or Hawaiian, ho'oponopono, like a chant, this meaning, or in English or your native tongue. And it creates miracles inside of you and with the relationships in your life and in the vibration of the world overall. It's more the intention than the mantra. There's one saint that was talking to a very learned man, and he'd been pronouncing this mantra incorrectly. And the student walks up to him and says, "The mantra is actually pronounced as," and he corrected his pronunciation.
Mm-hmm.
And so the saint, completely humble, he just starts walking toward this lake, saying it correctly with the new pronunciation, quietly to himself, muttering it to himself, practicing it correctly. And as the younger student that just taught him how to pronounce it correctly is watching, the saint begins to walk across the lake as he's muttering it to him. Like, oh, I guess the pronunciation isn't as important as I thought. Maybe that guy could have taught me more than I just taught him. Wasn't even relevant what I just taught him. And it is nice to tap into the morphic fields, the collective energy momentum of a whole bunch of praying people and get the spiritual knowledge right. But it's also even more than nice, like paramount, to not rely on that and realize that your sovereign connection with Creator can take any form. And what the still small voice tells you to do, it's not just best for you, it's best for the what I call the sovereign symphony, the moving of God through the collective in a way that we as individuals could not possibly orchestrate with our cerebral capacity, even with the assistance of AI and all the super intelligence synergy of everything. It doesn't hold a candle to omnipresence, to omnibenevolence, to omniscience, to God.
For
And
sure.
there's proof positive of that higher consciousness and the love inherent within it from observation of the coherence of these massively complicated systems that are in perfect synchrony with each other all the time, and even the
Yeah.
ways that they change. There's a perfection that isn't just self-fulfilling prophecy coming from people that want to feel safe. There's a perfection that is evident in observance. And all the great masters say the same thing as the, nervous little cultists that want to avoid the responsibility. It's all perfect, so I don't have to have emotional accountability, pay taxes or whatever. But the masters say the same thing. It's all perfect. And they have a completely different countenance when they say it because
Yeah.
they have confidence in the darkest corners of reality that's just as beautiful as the arc at the peak of heaven. It's the same.
Yeah.
And Anandamayi Ma, a great female saint, even a god avatar like Babaji, Mahathar Babaji, she said, "Before I was born, I was the same. As I live, I am the same. When this body returns to ash," I'm paraphrasing, "I will remain the same."
Mm.
That's not just true for her. And so these saints remind us not through miraculous David Copperfield, but authentic yogi power entertainment shows. They remind us through the potency of the feeling when we hear their words and connect to their presence that my love is just a reminder. Find your center. That the saint, the higher potential lives inside each one of us. So on that note, I do distance healing. And I don't claim to be one of these fully awakened, most amazing saints, but it is quite beautiful. And I like collaborating with other distance healers, and I like teaching people how to access energy healing, mediumship, and prayer for themselves. And my beautiful podcast host here will provide my contact information for you to look at. And I just want to send each and every one of you that I've met and that I haven't met my love and my sincere prayers for your peace, your happiness, and your awakening process and connection to spirit. It's such a privilege to be able
Mm.
to connect, share my voice and my love and my energy in a
Thank you,
more
brother.
direct way like this. Thank you. Thank you for co-creating this.
Yeah, thank you, man. I feel like we could really keep going for many more hours. And I really felt your love when you said that. So um yeah, Samson's an amazing spiritual teacher, an amazing guide, an amazing friend, amazing brother. And I am so grateful to have had you on. And yeah, I love for those watching on YouTube. Samson sharing his altar. So thank you so much, brother. It's been an honor to have you on, and you're always welcome back. So I think we can definitely do another episode sometime in the future. So sending you so much love, brother. Until next time.
Absolutely. We're finishing at almost 11:11. We'll stay on for two.
Yeah, 2 minutes away from 11:11. Love you,
Well, do you
brother.
want to share
Until
any
next
quotes?
time.
Yeah, for sure.
Take care.